Ignore your reality to create your reality. If that sounds impossible, keep watching because what I'm about to explain is going to completely shift how you view your current circumstances and how you create outside your circumstances. And I need to be clear about something right up front. This is definitely not about putting your head in the sand. This is not about pretending your problems don't exist. This is not about putting on blinders and refusing to look at what's in front of you. That's not what I mean when I say ignore reality. So, in this video, I'm going to explain why it's this misunderstanding that keeps people stuck, and I'm going to explain the flawed belief that this misunderstanding is based upon, and why changing that underlying belief is absolutely key to changing everything about how you consciously manifest and create your reality. If you're new here, hello, I am your Muse Tracy. On this channel, I help you take your power back so you can live the life you've always imagined and stop settling for the unconscious and unwanted patterns that come from your programming. Because the world is just your mirror showing you more of you. And all real change starts within. So let's talk about how to actually ignore reality the right way. First, let's clear up what ignoring reality does not mean. It doesn't mean you pretend everything is perfect when it's not. It doesn't mean you fake being happy when you're struggling. It doesn't mean you refuse to acknowledge what's happening in your 3D reality. That's denial. And denial doesn't create anything except more of what you're denying. Because what you resist persists, right? Have you ever heard that before? Okay. Then, so what does it mean to ignore reality the right way? Well, it means you stop giving your circumstances the power to determine your truth. It means you stop using what is as evidence of what's possible for you. It means you stop letting your 3D reality dictate what you can or cannot have. But why can't you stop doing these things? You may have tried to do these things and struggled to do them permanently and consistently, and that is because there's a flawed belief underneath that we need to look at and address and rewrite so that you can do exactly what I'm explaining, not just for a little bit using your willpower, but as your new set point for relating to your 3D reality and to your circumstances. And what is this flawed belief? Well, the flawed belief that makes it impossible for most people to actually ignore their reality so that they can create their reality on purpose is that most people view their 3D reality as real, as the one and only real truth. And they likewise view their imagination as just wishful thinking, just something they hope to be real and true one day, wishing upon a star. They look at what is in front of them and say, this is what's real. This is solid. This is truth. And then they look at what they're imagining and say, that's just fantasy. That's just me hoping. And that's not real. And as long as you hold that belief about your reality and your imagination, you won't be able to ignore your reality, at least not for very long, because eventually your willpower runs out. It is a limited resource. And that's why it's not sustainable to do these practices on willpower alone. Even if you're really stubborn and willful like me. I am very stubborn, a lot of willpower, but it's still a limited resource. It's still a limited resource and it will only get you so far. So there is a better way, a more permanent way, a more sustainable way to approach this. And that way is changing the belief about your 3D reality and your imagination. Because if you're making 3D reality more real than your imagination, you're giving your circumstances more power than your consciousness. And that's the fatal flaw that most people are operating from. But what did Neville teach? Well, he taught your 3D reality is not real. He called it the facts. It's not real in the way that you think it is. It's just your past assumptions showing up. It's just yesterday's consciousness being made manifest and materializing today. It's one possibility out of infinite possibilities, one version out of infinite versions that already exist. Your imagination, that's the real reality. That's where creation happens. That's the cause. Your 3D reality is the effect. It's just the effect. It's the mirror, the reflection, catching up to what you've already held in your consciousness. And it's this exact shift that changes everything in a permanent and sustainable way. So here's the shift that has to happen before you can actually really purposefully ignore your reality. You have to stop viewing your 3D as real and your imagination as wishful thinking. You have to understand that creation is finished, that all possibilities already exist. Everything you could ever want already exists right now, not in the future, not as something you need to create. No, not any of that. Already created, already is. There's a version of reality where you and your specific person are already together now. It exists now. There's a version where you have the money you desire right now. There's a version where you have the job, the health, the life, everything you want. It exists right now. All of these versions are equally real. They're all available. They all already exist, and they're all already available to you right now. Your 3D reality is just showing you one possibility, the one that matches what? Your past assumptions. But it's not more real than all the other possibilities. It's not more solid. It's not more true. It's just the version you've been dominantly tuned into based on your old programming, your old beliefs, and your old state of consciousness. And the moment you shift your consciousness, the moment you tune into a different possibility in your imagination, you start aligning with a different version that you will experience out there if you stay consistent and focused on your new chosen reality. Not because you created something new, because you selected something that already exists, consciously, deliberately. This is what Neville meant when he said creation is finished. You're not creating anything new ever. You're selecting from what has already been created because creation is finished. If you can have a thought about it, it already exists. It's already been created. Your imagination is not wishful thinking. It's you tuning into a different frequency, a different version, a different possibility that already exists. So when you see something in your 3D that you don't want, you don't make it more real than what's in your imagination. You simply recognize it for what it is. One possibility based on your old assumptions. And you view it as already changing because you've already shifted in your consciousness. And you make your imagination more real. You make what you're claiming in consciousness your now truth, not what your senses currently show. Now, here's where most people get stuck. And this is so important, so please feel free to watch this part a few times if necessary to really lock into what I'm explaining here. So important. Most people look at their current reality and they say, okay, I'll change my assumptions once this changes. Once my specific person comes back, then I'll believe. Once the money shows up, then I'll feel abundant. Once I see movement in the 3D, then I'll know it's working. But that's completely backwards. That keeps you trapped in a cycle of more waiting because your reality can only follow. It cannot lead. It cannot go first. You have to go first. Because if you're waiting for the mirror to change before you change, the mirror can't change until you do. You're waiting for external validation before you shift internally. But external validation can only come after you shift internally. This is the trap. External validation is the trap. And I see this so many people stuck in this exact thing. And I've been there myself too. They're doing the techniques, they're visualizing, they're affirming, but they're still waiting for their reality to change before they fully commit to their new assumption. They're still checking, still monitoring, still using the 3D as a measuring stick for whether it's working. And every time they check, every time they measure, every time they look for proof, they're creating from the state of not having it yet, not fully believing yet, still waiting for the reality to catch up before they fully believe. And this does not work. You have to go first and claim it in consciousness, deliberately, and with the conviction of knowing how all of this works. But when you aren't coming from this place of conviction, you're actually accidentally affirming and claiming lack. You're assuming delay. You're making your current reality more real than your desired reality that you hold in your consciousness. So nothing changes. Or it could change temporarily, slightly, and then it reverts right back because you never fully shifted. You kept one foot in the old reality, waiting for permission to fully step into the new one. But the new reality doesn't give you permission. You give yourself permission by shifting first. This is what it means to ignore reality. You stop waiting for it to change before you change. You change first. You claim your new reality in consciousness first. And then the 3D reality does what it always does. It catches up to you. So let me give you the practical steps for how to actually ignore reality the right way. Step 1, acknowledge what is without making it truth, right? We're not trying to not see our 3D circumstances. So acknowledge what's there. Yes, your specific person might be absent from your current reality, or perhaps with another in your current reality, and you can see that. Yes, your bank account might look low at the moment. Acknowledge that. Yes, the job I wanted was given to someone else. You can be aware of all of these things. You're not trying to not see these things. You're just not making those circumstances your truth anymore. You're not making them mean anything permanent about you or your future. You see them as only the evidence of your past assumptions. Step 2, separate facts from your now choice. The fact might be my specific person is still with someone else. But what are you now choosing? This is just temporary. This is just the old story. My past assumption showing up. They're already mine in consciousness. I don't need 3D reality to change for me to assume this right now. Another fact, my bank account is lower than I'd prefer. And what you're now choosing, even in the moment of seeing that, money is flowing to me in abundance. This is just my past assumption. Abundance is my truth. Another fact, I didn't get the job. What are you now choosing? The perfect job for me is already mine. I am now in the exact position that is absolutely perfect for me. You take the fact, and consciously choose what you now decide to experience. Step 3, make your imagination more real than your senses. This is the key. When your senses show you one thing and your imagination shows another, which one do you make more real? Most people make their senses more real. What they see, what they hear, what they experience in 3D, that becomes their truth, and then they wait for it to change. But when you understand how reality works, you make your imagination more real. What you're claiming in consciousness, that becomes your only truth, even when the 3D contradicts it, even when nothing has moved yet, even when it looks impossible. In the very moment you see your current reality, you reaffirm and realign with your now chosen reality, your preference. This is what I talk about all the time on my channel about when you turn a brick wall into the doorway that you walk through to your desired reality. Step 4, persist in your new assumption regardless of appearances. And this is where most people fall off. They can hold the new assumption for a day, maybe a week, but when they don't see immediate results, they go back to the old assumption. They let their current reality pull them back into the old story. But persisting means you hold your new assumption even when nothing in the 3D reality confirms it, even when it looks like it's not working, even when doubt creeps in. You persist in what you're now claiming in consciousness, and you refuse to let your current circumstances determine your truth. So let's bring this all together. Ignoring reality doesn't mean you're not seeing your current reality. It doesn't mean you're disconnected from what's happening around you. It doesn't mean you need to hide away from 3D reality so that it doesn't affect you. It means you understand that your current reality is not your truth. It's just one option, and it is a reflection of your old assumptions, old programming, old beliefs. And you're no longer identified with those old assumptions. You've claimed a new reality in consciousness, and you're making that reality more real to you than what your senses currently perceive. This is what Neville meant when he taught us to walk by faith and not by sight. Faith is not hoping something will happen. Faith is knowing it's already done in consciousness, regardless of what the 3D reality shows. And when you have that kind of faith, when you truly make your imagination more real than your circumstances, the circumstances have no choice but to conform. The mirror must reflect your new assumption, eventually and inevitably. But only if you stop making the current reflection your truth. I've seen this with so many clients. They come to me stuck because they can't let go of what currently is. They can't stop making their current reality mean something permanent. And the moment they shift, the moment they stop taking their circumstances as truth and start living from their new assumption, start living from their consciousness, everything starts to move. Everything that was previously stuck starts moving. Why? Why does it start moving? Not because their circumstances suddenly changed. No, it's because they stopped empowering the circumstances with their focus, with their belief, with their assumption. They redirected all their power back to their imagination consciously, back to their new assumption, to what they're claiming and choosing right now. All of your power is in this now moment, and the 3D reality had no choice but to follow. So here's what I want you to remember. Your current reality is not the one and only truth. It's actually just old news. It's yesterday's assumptions. It's the mirror showing you what you used to think and assume. It's the mirror showing you what you used to be, think, and assume. And you don't have to accept it as permanent. You don't have to wait for it to change before you change. You change first in consciousness, in imagination, in what you now choose to believe and assume to be true. This is your power to create reality. And then the 3D catches up to you. Not because you forced it, but because the mirror can only reflect. It's always catching up to you. It's always following you. So it's just doing what it's always doing anyway. So the mirror can only reflect what you're already being in consciousness. Most people will hear this and still make their circumstances more real than their imagination. They'll still wait for proof before they shift. They'll still let their 3D determine their truth, but you're not most people if you're watching this. You're here because you're ready to understand that consciousness is the one and only reality, that your imagination is more real than anything you can perceive with your senses, that you don't have to wait for permission for the 3D to change to claim what is already yours. If you want my help making this powerful and permanent shift, if you're ready to stop letting your current reality determine your truth and start creating from pure consciousness, there is a link in the description below to find out more about my coaching program and about working one-on-one with me. If you still have any questions about the program or about working with me, there's also a link in the pinned comment where you can book a free consultation with me. You can ask any questions about working with me and learn more about the coaching program itself. So click the link and book that free call. And thank you all so much for watching this one. I'll see you in the next video.